Ever wondered why some brands just stick with you? And it's not just their logo or their products, it's their stories. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be breaking down how you can use storytelling to connect with your audience and build a brand that people just don't like, but they actually feel connected to and remember. Let's dive in. One of the first things to think about is to understand the purpose of your story. Before you even start crafting a story, I want you to ask yourself, what do I want my audience to feel or take away? Remember, storytelling isn't just about sharing some cute story. It's really about creating an experience for your audience. Your brand story can shape how your audience feels about you, whether that's being inspired, motivated, or understood. I want you to take a few moments to think about the brands that you feel connected with. What about those brands that made you feel inspired or motivated or even understood? What is specific about those brands? I remember when I was on my path to building my personal brand back in 2018, I wanted to become a motivational speaker. And I was inspired by a lot of these personal brands that were motivational speakers at that time and still are. And I can remember most of those motivational speakers that I followed, they evoked some type of emotion out of me, whether they were kingdom focused or they spread a lot of love and positivity and inspiration to be the best that you can be. I felt connected to them. And that truly impacted my brand as I built my brand as a speaker and a coach and an entrepreneur. What was even more powerful about being inspired by some of these individuals was I noticed that every single one of them shared their story. I remember one of my favorite speakers, his name was Inky Johnson. One of the first times that I heard him speak live, he shared his story of how he injured his arm during a football game. And that inspired him to become the motivational speaker that he was today. And his journey through the devastation, but the triumph in this new path that God set before him, that inspired me also to share my story when I began speaking. And I remember my very first keynote, I too shared a story. I talked about some of the health challenges that I had faced over the years and how that propelled me and pushed me towards my purpose. So all in all, what I'm saying is that your story can resonate with other people. Don't be afraid to use it and don't be afraid to share it in order to connect on a deeper level with your audience. After this video, what I want you to do is take 5 minutes to write down how you want your audience to feel after they hear your brand story, because that's very important. And once you have that top of mind, it's going to be easier for you to really share your story in a natural form anytime you are speaking in front of your audience, whether that's live during an event or even a social media live. The point is to share your story and not be afraid to connect with your audience on a more human level. The second point that I want to make is that when you are sharing your story, you want to ensure that you share your struggles and success. People connect to real stories, especially the ones when you overcome certain obstacles and you learn something valuable from hitting rock bottom. You've overcome something that maybe someone else is currently struggling with. Those are the stories that we connect with. Too many brands out there focus more on the shiny objects, the perfect part of their journey. We call that the highlight reel. But what makes people connect with brands is when they really show their struggles. These are the behind the scenes. How did they get from point A to point B? What had to happen in order for them to reach their goals? It's important to show the entire process. I remember when I first started to create content on social media, I was one of those brands that just showed the highlight reel. I thought that that's what people wanted to see, and I would just show all of my wins. But in 2017, I hit rock bottom for the second time. I had an emergency surgery. And after that surgery, I had a different perspective on life and on business. And I remember going on Facebook and sharing my story, and I was overwhelmed by the responses that I got. That post actually ended up going viral. And I was very shocked by the response. But the key was I finally shared my struggle live and people saw me on a more human level. They were able to connect with me on a deeper level. And after that, I had an overwhelming, response of support and prayers and connection. And it just made it easier for me to just let loose and really share my life with my audience moving forward. It was then that I realized that how important it is to show the struggle and the success. And that same story that I shared on social media actually became the story that I ended up sharing in my signature keynote speeches. And it was something that was very private and personal, but the more I made it public, the more I felt connected with my audience because I recognized that so many other people were dealing with similar issues. And my story gave them hope that they could also overcome the issue. What I want you to do is I want you to think about one aha moment that has happened in your business and how you can tie that to your brand story, because that aha moment came from a struggle, and how you overcame it is what you can build your story upon. The beautiful thing about our stories is that a lot of them are not meant for us. They're meant for other people so that other people can move closer to the purpose that God has placed in their life. Holding on to your stories is keeping someone else from stepping into their purpose. But when you release it, when you share it, you're giving someone the opportunity to grow. And finally, point number 3 is craft stories that focus on your audience's needs. I focused on this a little bit in point number 2, but I'm going to reiterate this. I want you to remember that your story isn't just about you. It's also about how it relates to your audience. A strong brand story resonates because your audience will see themselves in it. And so when you are crafting your story, you have to be able to think about your audience and how it's going to help them, how it's going to inspire them, how it's going to motivate them and give them some sort of transformation. When I go live on social media or when I'm sharing content in my videos and I'm talking about a story in my life, I always like to relate it back to my audience. A lot of times I'm giving them advice because I've already made certain mistakes or I've already overcome certain challenges, and I'm saying, hey, here's the blueprint. Here's how you can get from point A to point B without having to endure some of the suffering that I've had to go through. So whether my experiences have been my relationship with God and my journey and my walk in faith, or maybe my story has been tied to some of the medical struggles that I've had to overcome, or maybe there's some of the business struggles. I love storytelling in a way that is educating. And that's my background as a former teacher. So I love educating in a way through storytelling. And so I want you to think about how you can share your stories and your experiences and how it can uplift and motivate your community. When you focus on shared experiences and mutual challenges, what it does is it positions your brand as the friend who is relatable and understands. And that's a beautiful place to be. One actionable step that I would encourage you to do is sit down and write down your audience's top 3 challenges and see if you can incorporate at least one of those challenges into your story. All right, my friend, now it's your turn. Go ahead and take a moment to think about your own brand story. And I don't want you to overthink it. I really want you just to sit with yourself and think about how your brand story can really connect and relate to your audience and what they can get from that story. And of course, if you found this video helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe, especially if you want to learn more ways to uplift and to amplify your brand as well as build your business. Before you go, be sure to comment one thing below that you would like to share about your brand story, and I would love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, your brand is your story. So tell it in a way that is most real to you. I'll see you in the next one.